Morning everybody, welcome to the Cabinet meeting. Just before we start the Cabinet meeting, I just want to make a statement in regards to the flooding in the Ironbridge Gorge. Firstly, I'd like to say a massive thank you to our staff here at Telford Wrekin Council, our contractors, Balfour Beatty, Ida Verdi, and a number of other local contractors who have worked to support us in the effort in the gorge. Together with our Environment Agency colleagues, our fire and rescue colleagues, the police and other key partners. It's been a huge effort, only surpassed really by the response of residents in the community, which has been amazing. I think the Environment Agency themselves have said last night that this type of event, albeit unusual, will become much more normal going forward. And therefore, given how close we were to those barriers, those temporary barriers failing, I do think it's time that the government came forward with a permanent solution, not just on the wharfage, although the wharfage is very important, but looking at the gorge in its entirety. And I do think that we will absolutely be lobbying government for that investment. But I just wanted to say thank you to all the staff, from the communications team to finance team to highways engineers. Every part of this council have rallied around the community. Myself and Carolyn will be writing to every resident affected, a letter that will be hand-delivered tomorrow to those residents, which will talk about the support that we'll be putting in place. For example, council tax rebate for those residents, business rates relief, support, clearing up, and a whole range of other interventions. We're not out of the woods yet. Clearly the weather forecast is bleak, and the flood barriers will continue to stay up for the foreseeable future. But hopefully the worst has passed, but we'll be on the side of residents over the coming days and weeks and months if necessary. Carolyn, do you want to say something?
I'd just like to echo everything that you've said, really. I mean, huge thanks to our staff who have been incredible, but also our contractors and our partners in the other agencies that have been supporting residents of the gorge during this time. It's devastating for those residents and businesses that have been flooded. But one of the things that has shone through, I think, through all of this is the many acts of kindness from other people in the community who've just come forward, people who are traders offering to replaster people's homes, offering to decorate, offering furniture. It's just been incredible, and I think it just shows the strength of community we have in the gorge. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you very much. We'll start the meeting proper then. Apologies for absence. Councillor Andrew Reid. Declarations of interest? No. Minutes from the previous meeting? Are they agreed? Thank you. I'll move on to item 4 then, which is the financial management plan. Lee.
Thank you, Leader. I'll keep this brief. Financial management effectively sets the picture as it is in year. Obviously later on we've got the service and financial planning report, which sets the longer term context. Within this report you'll see that we still face prolonged challenges and a period of uncertainty in terms of local government finance. However, we are still anticipated to finish or end the year within budget, with £1.1 million worth of unused contingency. Obviously that contingency is dependent on pressures. We've just been through a winter period with potential for increased cost pressures in adult social care, but also within those pressures may well fall winter pressures and pressures costs from adverse weather. In particular, we know that under the Bellwin formula, for instance, that provides relief to local authorities for costs incurred as a result of flooding, we will need to meet the first £251,000 of those costs. That will need to be charged directly to that £1 million contingency. Within this report you'll also see that we've got children's safeguarding that again has increased in terms of that cost pressure to the tune of £250,000 since the last report, which was only last month. However, offsetting that is exceptional performance in terms of treasury management, £3.2 million, and our income collection, corporate income collection, is roughly on target. The facts are that if we hadn't invested in attracting business, if we hadn't attracted growth for town in terms of new house building and that new homes bonus, if we hadn't increased our commercial activity in terms of our sales ledger within this report, we would be in serious financial difficulties. We're not. We had a strategy, we've stuck to that strategy, and effectively that means that this year we will finish within budget, still with some contingency to spare, hopefully. I'd like to mention the officers. Sean mentioned earlier about the team that have been brilliant during the flooding. But right across the piece, in terms of this financial challenge, it's been a challenge for a decade now, and those officers have continued to deliver, find efficiencies within the organisation, but at the same time still been able to deliver excellent services to residents, which is what we're all about. I'd like to move the recommendations to 1, 2 and 3.
Thank you. So this is on the financial management. Bill, anything from yourself?
Yeah, I just want to echo the points you made there with regards to staff. These have been really tough times for the last 10 years in terms of all these cost savings I've had to make, restructuring after restructure. It can be extremely demoralising when you're thinking what a restructure could mean. I might lose my job. So I want to pay tribute to those staff, particularly the financial staff. I've never seen such a comprehensive report, so well done to them, and well done to everyone who's working on the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That's been seconded. Richard? All those in favour? Everyone, thank you. Okay, item 5.
Item 5, so Service and Financial Planning Leader. Obviously, at the January Cabinet meeting, I moved much of the detail, or talked about a lot of the detail contained within this report, and that's been well documented over the month in which we've been out to consultation with the community. Times are still uncertain for us in terms of local government finance. Whilst we had a slight increase in terms of revenue support grant this year, that effectively meant that the government went from providing 8.1 pence in every pound of net revenue budget to 8.2 pence in every pound of our net revenue budget. So it's not as been spun out in the press. For that reason, because of uncertainty, we've seen the Chancellor only this week announce that he's asked departments for a further 5% savings proposals before he goes to budget. Bearing in mind that the government have promised a lot of money for the NHS, that shows you that local government perhaps is going to be forgotten again. We're only able to set a 1-year revenue budget strategy with a 3-year capital programme within that, so that we can retain that flexibility. However, we'll remain true to our deal that we've always been consistent with to the public of Telford and Wrekin. First of all, we'll continue to use capital investments to generate returns and additional income to invest in frontline services. Within this report, we do plan to extend the capital programme, and I'll talk about that shortly. We will continue to keep available as much one-off resource as is sensible in order to meet the cost of day-to-day pressures, and we will continue on a regular basis to identify efficiencies and savings that can be made across the authority. And when you read through this report, you'll see that rings true in virtually everything that we set out. In terms of the big changes from when I brought this report to Cabinet, we have increased the amount of money that will be invested into children's safeguarding from 2.958 million to 4.958 million. That's a significant increase. I talked in the financial management report about the cost pressures that we're seeing in that particular area. Just for by way of context, in the years 2017-18, our expenditure on children's safeguarding was £25.7 million. That budget has increased 53% in that time. In terms of the other headlines, which remain consistent from my last report, adult social care, we will invest a further £3.926 million, which will take that total budget to £45 million. Between adult social care and children's safeguarding, we will now spend over £81 million on those two areas alone. That is equivalent to 66.9 pence of every pound of our net budget spent on those two budget areas. We will make further revenue investments into housing and homelessness. We will make a small amount of revenue available to pump prime our work on climate change, and we'll also make a small amount of revenue available to invest in local pride projects, the kind of projects in the neighbourhoods that mean so much to residents. We will look for savings of £3.3 million next year, rising to £4.5 million the following year. And we'll use balances of £1.43 million to balance the budget. We also propose to increase council tax by 1.99% general council tax and implement a 2% adult social care precept, which will raise £2.7 million. If you think about the revenue investments that I talked about, the extra for adult social care, children's safeguarding, housing homelessness, pump priming work and climate change and local pride projects, that totals £8 million. In terms of the capital programme, we intend to allocate over a 3-year period £60 million to build new houses, good quality homes, homes at affordable rent, specialist accommodation, and also to attract business to Telford and Wrekin. We intend to be committed and determined in terms of creating those conditions for businesses to stay, to grow or to relocate to Telford and Wrekin. We will invest £5 million in our local high streets, £12 million into our roads, footpaths, cycleways, £4 million into the maintenance of bus shelters, bridges and walls, and £4 million to fund climate change initiatives as we go forward. As I said earlier in the financial management report, in terms of our commercial activity ongoing, our growth fund, new place, solar farm, property investment portfolio, that now accounts for somewhere near 30% of the total monies that we spend on children's safeguarding and adult social care. Consider that budget was £81 million. That shows you the extent to which the government has now left the field and is not funding services which are most important to the most vulnerable within our borough. That said, I would like to draw people's attention to page 149 of the report, the robustness statement from the Chief Finance Officer to the Council. It's a great play has been made on this statement by opposition in the past when they've put forward opposition proposals, which again I know that they're not here, they're not even here today. Actually, the proposals aren't here either. But he's confirmed that this budget is robust once again. And to page 105 also, in terms of the scrutiny committee, it's been through scrutiny committee, and I'd like to thank Councillor Collier for taking us through that and making observations and comments on the report. Before I move the recommendations again, I'd just like to thank the officers, the whole team across the authority. This budget process starts in the summer, continues as a number of iterations, and for the finance team it's been particularly difficult given that a lot of the information that we need to stack up this budget took a long time to come. I think the core of it was given to us on Christmas Eve. The remainder, I think we're still waiting for dribs and drabs, but the remainder didn't come until February. For a £400 million gross budget, that's unacceptable from the government, but they've done a sterling job dealing with that. And they also deserve great credit as well for maintaining and providing that financial foundation on which we've been able to build a very ambitious project over the last 10 years as a Labour administration. I'd like to move all of the recommendations contained on page 3943 to 43. I won't go through them all in detail because we'll be here until about 12 o'clock if I do.
Thank you, Lee. Is that seconded?
I'll second that, yeah.
Richard?
Yeah, I mean, I think this budget is one that links into our manifesto that we got elected on last year to protect, care and invest in our borough and to create a better borough. And as the cabinet member for neighbourhood services, if you look at not just the funding we're putting in, but other things like the growth deal, this is going to be £50 million spent over 4 years, or the next 4 years, to invest in roads, footpaths, the infrastructure, our bridges and the transport network as a whole. And residents can be assured that as a council we're committed to delivering for them, and that is why we're keeping to our manifesto commitments, and that's why this budget will not only protect and care and invest in adult social care and children and young people, but also in the stuff that people see as they open their front door, which I'm sure the residents will be proud of.
Thank you, Richard. Shirley?
Thank you. I think it's already been alluded to, but it is a massive investment that we as administration are putting into children, young people and adults. But I think that needs to be put into the national context as to why we are where we are. We've had 10 years now of austerity, and that is really playing out with some of our families. They're in really difficult situations and they do need us to support them, but they're not actually getting that support from the government. And it's also thinking about things like the send home, the special education home to school transport and transport provision, that was increased to 25 from 18, and absolutely no funding came across for us to deliver that. We've got a statutory responsibility that's been passed on to us without any funding at all. So I do think it needs to be put into the national picture, but I am really proud of how we as a authority are investing in our children, our adults. £5 million that is going into family safeguarding. I mean, that is amazing. It's because we care and we are very passionate, and our families know that they can look to us and we will protect, care and invest. If it's not happening nationally, they know our local borough will. So yes, I'm really lucky within my portfolio. We have got some really good things that we are doing that. But also, it's for every resident. We've got 5 million going into our borough towns. I am fortunate, I am on a borough council and I'm also on a town council, and I know this borough will look after all our market towns, and it's very, very important that everybody, all our residents, our budget reaches every single one, whether that's you are a parent, you're a grandparent, you're somebody who shops in the local borough towns, you've got that investment coming in, and we've got the commitment to free parking. We are trying to look after everybody, but we're also encouraging businesses in, and it's that encouraging businesses to come to Telford, to stay and invest in Telford. So we are providing for all of our families, and I think that really hits back, and our manifesto, Protect, Care and Invest, this budget lives up to its name, and I think it's amazing, and I thank our officers for the work they've done in helping us deliver our manifesto.
David.
I'm particularly pleased, Leader, to see the £5 million of investment for borough towns and high streets, and I think this is balanced, a balanced package. We're hoping to invest heavily in the town centre. We're hoping to do the really innovative station quarter proposal, and that's crucially important for our town, but it's also very, very important that we protect and we care for and we invest in our borough towns, and that's absolutely central to our approach. Shopping habits are changing. People are shopping more online. Their traditional shopping habits are changing. What we've got to do is encourage people to get back and use your high street, get back and use your borough town, and that's got to be backed up by investment from the council. And this authority, this administration recognises that our high streets and our borough towns are incredibly important. They're a linchpin really for our communities, and people want to see them vibrant and they want to see investment into them. And this £5 million, I hope that local parish councils, town councils, local community groups will come forward with ideas, initiatives where we could see this £5 million go in and be matched funded by business investment, by parish and town council investment, by community investment, by community effort, by crowdfunding initiatives, so that we can build momentum behind our new behind our borough towns, alongside the momentum that we have around the station quarter, South Water and the town centre. So it's about making sure that we protect those borough towns. So I think there's a real call from us as a cabinet to come forward with ideas, bring forward initiatives, come and talk to us about how we can make sure that our borough towns continue to be a success.
Thank you. Andy?
Yes, thank you, Sean. In my portfolio, which is adult social care, I think everybody's aware of the crisis nationally, which the government continue to fail to address in terms of giving sufficient resources and giving surety to the way we plan for adult social care going forward. We're not immune to that in Telford and Wrekin, but what we have done and we continue to do is to make sure we do protect the most vulnerable in our society. This council has a strong track record of that, and it's reflected in this budget statement. Councillor Carter's already said that we're investing an extra 3.9 million in adult social care. That's on top of the 2% precept that the government allows us to levy for adult social care. Now that doesn't go all the way to addressing all the needs we would like to address. What it does do is make sure that we can continue to pick up those who are in most need. we would love to do more than we're doing, but times are very difficult in the adult social care world. We've also continued to be able to invest in preventative strategies which stop admissions to hospital, which enable people who want to leave hospital to be able to do so rather than stay there and deteriorate. That kind of work is also crucial, and we've got some really innovative approaches to that, and we are continuing to invest in this way. All this money that we're investing doesn't come out of thin air. It's as a result of the council's management and its approach to investing in order to generate this kind of income, and Councillor Carter's talked about that. So I'm proud to be a part of the adult social care team that's doing so well in the context of the national situation and the financial difficulties we've got. So thank you very much.
Carolyn?
Just picking up on Councillor Wright's points really around some of the environmental and highways expenditure that we're managing to do, and we've got real challenges obviously with our budgets and with pressures in adult social care and children's services, but I think it's a credit really to the organisation that we're able to still put aside that investment into our high streets and into just general road maintenance. Certainly in my ward, in the Ironbridge Gorge, we've had the benefit of the facade scheme and the empty units grants. And not only does that lift the time, but we've got to remember that we also attract a lot of tourists, not just to the gorge but to the whole borough. We have 6 million visitors a year come to our area. They spend in our economy, and that helps keep jobs going. That's so important to us. And so by investing in those high streets, we're able to ensure that visitors continue to come, because our town is an attractive place to visit. My ward is also on the edge of our borough. And one of the comments that I get a lot is I get people contacting me about a particular road that's in a dire state, and when I investigate further I find it's actually across the border. There's a very distinct difference. We still have potholes, I'm not going to lie, but there is a very distinct difference in our road maintenance at the edge of the borough, and people see it, and I think it's again to everyone's credit that we're still investing and able to maintain our roads to a decent standard. And lastly, I just wanted to welcome the additional funding in relation to climate change. That's so important. It's very difficult when we've got such financial pressures to then also try to squeeze a little bit more out the pot for things like this, but we've done that, and I think that's really important. I'm glad we've been able to do it.
More on that later. Ray?
I just want to pick up on a couple of things which might easily be missed because they're not quite as sexy as some of these big things, but as it were, which is around something that I am desperately proud of this council and the way it does. It's how it operates, and it's how it operates with our partners in terms of building our community capacity, working with our town and parish councils, working with our voluntary sectors, because without them we couldn't present this budget and deliver the services that we're continuing to develop. And Carolyn mentioned the distinct differences. When I go to meetings where there are town and parish councils from Shropshire, other organisations from Shropshire, the difference stands out a mile in terms of how well we work with our communities and our voluntary sectors and our parish councils. There are complaints and we sit there and we're light years ahead in terms of our working. So I'm really pleased that we're continuing to do that. The other thing I think that enables us to be proud of what we do is the way the staff are looking and working to change the approaches that we use and the processes we use. So our channel shifting in terms of our customer service is saving us lots of money, but keeping the services high, a really high standard. And I think both of those should be noted and welcomed, and we should be very proud of them, and they make this budget work and keep our council tax low.
Thank you. Ray? Rod?
Thank you, Leader. As my role in communities in the Cabinet, there's been a lot of positive response from other communities on the way that the council administration and how the town's shaping out. A lot of communities have a lot of families and friends coming from abroad and nationally to the town, and they've commented, a lot of faith groups on the positivity and how proud they are on how our town's moving forward. On going forward, there's a lot of businesses who want to invest in our town, and there's quite a few inquiries ongoing at the moment. People who want to come in and open new businesses in our town from other towns up and down the country. There's a positive response from our new nurses cohort that are coming into Telford. They're enjoying the sightseeing of Telford, and they're thanking the TLC cards that we've offered them as an administration. So it's a big thank you from the nurses and doctors that are coming to the PRH, and there's more to come. And most of all, I want to say thank you to the staff in the council. The turnaround time on any responses, any questions that I've asked is applaudable. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Sean. Well, as an accountant, it always concerns me when we have a growth. This is no criticism of the council. We've had a growth through need on children's safeguarding and family support this year of 3.3 million over the original budget. That's a 10% growth. We've had a growth in adult social care of nearly 2 million, which is 4.5%. And quite rightly, those figures, the total figures of the outturn this year, have been built into next year's budget with a bit more on top. Now, in my mathematics, that just comes over to about £5.3 million on those two areas of the council alone. Now, we're restricted by government, quite rightly, because people can't afford council tax increases, to not increase council tax more than 3.99%, 4%. That delivers 2.7 million. So we're 2.6 million short. Government won't allow us to get it from anywhere else unless we can be innovative or save the money. And yet we have to fund these absolutely vital services. Even more of a point, the government has so far recognised the issues a little bit with adult social services, and we have a precept of 2.2%. That 2.2% roughly gives us about £1.5 million. That £1.5 million doesn't cover the increase in cost of 1.9 million we've had this year. It is totally wrong to expect the local population through council tax, which doesn't effectively take into account people's ability to pay, to expect them, when they're getting pay increases far, far less than 4%, to have to stump up yet again a council tax increase. And even with that council tax increase, and I'm going to repeat myself, it only gives us half of the increase in costs that we have to put in to support the people in great need. And indeed this year, even with that council tax increase of 2.7 million, we're having to go into our balances, our savings, if you think of it in your own household terms, of 1.4 million. And going into savings in a long-term position, and we have to do this, isn't right. And people who've got their own budgets at home know you can't keep dipping into savings all the time. Now, this is a robust budget. It's the best we can do with what we have. But the government also, in trying to say let's fund adult and children's social services in the future now only from the council tax base in a local authority, if you happen to live in a below average council tax area, which Telford Wrekin is, the base from which you can get that taxable income from is significantly lower. Imagine you were funding the police and you said it's all going to come from council tax, and those that can raise the most council tax can spend the most in their area. That means the more affluent areas can have the best police forces in the country, and those with the poorer areas get the worst. And I've seen this in operation in America. In the state systems over there, those areas that have got poor ability to pay end up with the crappiest education and the crappiest healthcare and the crappiest everything else. Is this what people want for Britain? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Boris was elected to try and turn things around and make things fairer. The government have got to step in and realise adult social care, children's services, cut across people's ability to pay. This has got to be financed properly and not be borne upon by those who can ill afford it the most. It just beggars belief what the government are trying to do. In terms of the innovative ideas that the council are coming up with, in terms of growing our industrial base to provide jobs for the future, it's great. But we're often accused, particularly by our erstwhile Conservative friends who aren't here today, of saying, Telford Wrekin Council, it's all their fault these houses that are being built. It's all their fault that you're getting all your green land built on. Well, it's worth reminding the people out there that for two reasons, and I won't blather on much longer, two reasons, the housing targets are set nationally. The only choice we have locally is where they're built. If it wasn't for those houses being built, which are around about 12 to 1400 a year, where would the increase in council tax come from to support the other services that we've got? If we didn't have the industrial base growing, we'd be in a similar pickle. The government are forcing us to grow. They're forcing us to build on our green land to finance all those costs locally. If they provided the additional finance, there wouldn't be the pressures upon all local authorities to grow at such a rate that people don't like. And it's about time that the Conservative group here were honest about this, and they're not. I support this budget wholeheartedly, the efforts of everyone around the table that try to put it together, and particularly the staff who are having to work with this day in and day out. I foresee, because it's happened in the last 10 years, and I can't see why it wouldn't happen next year, that the budget we've put in place for children's safeguarding and adult social care will be breached, because there'll be more people out there with a crying needs. For adult social services, we'll be looking at the next statement in June saying we're predicting it to be $1 million or $2 million over. Children's safeguarding we're $1 million or $2 million over. We'll have to then go back to the cavalry and the finance team and hope that they've over-provided again for the interest costs in the budget, so we can dig out another $3 million to support us, because this is going to happen. And then next year we're thinking, where the hell are we going to get another $5 million from the increase in adult and children's social services from? I don't know. We can't keep saving. We need to invest in the other services as well. Where's the preventative services that we desperately want to put in for young children out there, you know, community services, youth clubs? I could go on, but I won't. So thank you very much for letting me vent this spleen.
Thank you, Bill. No, thanks for your contribution. I think no one in this room thinks what we've got here at the council or in our borough is perfect. Actually, if it was, then people in this room probably wouldn't want to be involved, because we're involved because we want to make things better, creating a better borough. But I think if you look at what we've got here in Telford Wrekin, it is good. We have the lowest council tax in the Midlands. We don't have car park charges across our borough towns. Direct contrast to other local areas that do that. We don't charge for green waste. There's a number of things that we have not done in order to be on the side of our residents. But no one here thinks that our council tax is not a burden upon family households. It absolutely is. It's probably the second biggest bill after your rent or your mortgage payment. So we're absolutely convinced and sure that we want to protect as many people as we can. We had a council tax support policy come forward with that support in place. In terms of our green spaces, we've created more local nature reserves over the last 3 years than ever before. We're investing in our high streets and borough towns, as has been described, but also we're investing in our Stronger Communities Fund, a place like Donington, for example. Donington, an area that needs investment, and this Labour Council will continue to invest in Donington and other areas across Telford Wrekin, but also looking at our new communities and trying to understand how we can improve their experience too. I think Bill picks up the point very well in terms of, actually, as a council, we're always we're a council that stepped into the breach. Actually, if you look at where taxpayers' money is being spent, it's being spent in the wrong areas. So, for example, the acute hospital here in Telford and Shropshire is struggling because adult social care isn't being invested in, because children's safeguarding isn't being invested in, because public health isn't being invested in, because prevention isn't being invested in. There are issues around mental health and antisocial behaviour that, if we had some more money and we were able to put interventions in place, would save the sector money, and we stand ready to work with government around that. Lots of praise for officers, quite absolutely right to do that, and I join that praise, but also a praise to the cabinet members. We don't just turn up and present the reports. on behalf of officers. We work with officers to craft the policies, to craft the messaging, to craft the approach, and to put forward those innovation behind the scenes, working together jointly to deliver. So I want to thank every cabinet member here. Thank Scrutiny for their input on a cross-party basis, and in particular to thank Lee for steering forward another budget, a budget that puts us on a really good footing going forward for the next 12 months or so. It's been moved, it's been seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ken. We'll move forward then to the item 6, which is the Telford Wrekin Council Becoming Carbon Neutral Action Plan. Councillor Hilda Rhodes.
Thank you, Chairman. It gives me pleasure to bring this report to you. The Council recognises the adverse impact that climate change is having both globally and locally, and the important role that the local authorities can plan in addressing this issue. On the 24th of July 2019, the Council approved a motion to declare climate emergency, making the following commitments. Making a commitment for the Council's operation and activities to be carbon neutral by 2030. Collaborate and engage with residents, partners and businesses in Telford and Wrekin and at regional and national level to achieve our aspirations for the borough to be carbon neutral by 2030, making sure we take communities with us, protect employment and without impoverising our most deprived communities. Climate change, it's a critical agenda, and it is important that we as a council respond to set an example, but also recognise that we can learn from others. We have already achieved a huge amount. We have done lots of things that other authorities are just putting in their future plans. The action plan sets our actions across all our services, but is a starting point. We will welcome ideas, collaboration with community and partners developing it. The plan links closely with our commitment to be a forestry community, delivering more and enhanced green spaces and increasing our woodland cover. Addressing climate change is a shared challenge that the Council alone cannot achieve, and the report sets out plans to establish a climate change partnership to work with the Council to fulfil our aspirations for the borough to become a carbon neutral and to maximise engagement with all our communities. And this is Cabinet, it is being asked to approve its recommendations on page 310, points 1 to 5. And also in here we've set a website which has got lots and lots of information in there for people out there to come to and ask questions, put ideas, and this is why we say working together we can achieve this as partnerships. So I move the recommendation.
Thank you, Hilda. Is that seconded? Thank you, Raj. Any comments or questions? Karen?
Yeah, just, I mean, I think we can all agree climate change is happening now. It's not something that's coming in the future. It is happening now. We're seeing more storm events. These are more intense in nature. We've just been experiencing that in my area, but also across the whole country. And I know the Severn has flooded before. This is not new, but it's what the Environment Agency and others are telling us is that the nature of these flooding events, the frequency of them, the intensity of them, is changing and it's becoming harder to predict. It's also becoming a bit harder to respond to flash flooding events, because they happen so quickly, as did with the breaking of the Colebrook over the weekend. So it's right that as Telford and Wrekin Council we do all we can to reach net zero by 2030, and that we work with our partners and communities to do the same across the whole borough. There'll be people who read the plan and have thoughts on other actions that we should be taking, and that's great, we welcome that. You know, this is a live document. It will be continually updated. So do challenge us, do be our critical friends, because this is a huge issue and we do have to work together on this. But the thing I wanted to say really was that Telford Wrekin Council, together with all the other local councils across the country that have declared a climate emergency, can't address this issue on our own. This isn't an issue that local government on its own can deal with. We need national and international action, and I really hope that we can work cross-party and with our MPs so that we can ensure that our government takes a stronger lead on this and uses our country's influence on the international stage to ensure that we have really strong international action, and that really needs to happen, and it needs to happen soon.
Thank you, Karen. Lee?
Echo everything that Councillor Healy and Councillor Rhodes have said. It's fantastic to see that actually this means more to this administration than just a motion passed through council. That actually we're now seriously thinking about how we play our part, because it is our part. But actually that we've also put some money to back this up. Obviously the number of adverse weather incidents are increasing. It's clear that there is climate change occurring in our lifetime. We're seeing things that we've not seen within our lifetime in terms of weather incidents. It is also concerning that there's a rise in climate denial in some of the big Western nations, America in particular, who have got to play their part massively. But I think in terms of grassroots, I'm absolutely delighted that within this report is recommendation or action 36, which is developing and delivering an engagement programme to schools. Actually, schools and young kids are probably way ahead of the curve of us adults, and that's the thing that struck me with this. When my 9-year-old son, when I'm walking into school, is telling me about climate change and what we need to do as a family, that shows that the campaign that's underway has been effective, but that actually we need to reinforce that as much as possible, not just in terms of influencing people like me, parents. You know, when your 9-year-old says something to you, you often think it's because you're old and out of date. No, actually this has been different because it's made me feel that I've got to do something, I've got to change the way I behave, and we must continue that. I'm really pleased to see that within this report and really fully support everything that's proposed within the action plan.
Andy?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you can see the strengths that we were talking about earlier in terms of our partnerships with the voluntary sector and with business coming to fruition in terms of this major policy agenda of climate change. We've got a good record, as the report points out, on climate change so far. There's a lot more we need to do, a lot more actions we need to do to be the example that we want to be to other organisations in Telford and Wrekin and indeed beyond. But where we really do score, or should score on this, is in terms of taking others with us in the borough, and I'm really looking forward to that partnership approach being developed as through our work in this area. Thank you.
I just wanted to focus quickly on the transport elements of this report. We've got a really significant programme here that the Council's taking action on, but I would put a call out really to partners and businesses locally to come and work with us on this programme. I'm particularly keen that we focus on electric vehicle charging and new forecourt provision, so I'd like to throw the challenge out to local businesses, local organisations to come and talk to us as an organisation so that we can promote electric vehicle charging points, fast charging points in the borough, and make sure that we're preparing for the changes the government's announced. Now, there's also a challenge to government here, because if you're going to make an announcement that and I support it, that we're going to remove vehicles from the roads that are run on petrol and diesel, then you've got to come forward with some support for the infrastructure to make that happen. So there's a dual challenge here from us as a council. We're trying to set the pace on some of these climate change initiatives. So there's a call out really. If you're a local business, you're a local organisation that's engaged, perhaps if you've got a car park that helps support your business, if you're a supermarket, if you're a provider, if you're a service station, come forward and talk to us about how we can help in terms of electric forecourt vehicle charging. But also I throw the challenge down to the government. Where's the infrastructure investment coming from to make sure that we can deliver on the longer term climate change initiatives that the government themselves are setting out? I happen to support them, but it has to be backed up with hard money and not just rhetoric.
Yes, I'll offer this initiative. I couldn't help but think when we had the council motion to consider this, we had a heat wave going on. And now we've got the cabinet report come with a flood going on. I welcome the fact that this report, pardon the pun, is fluid, because it will need to change over time. And I'm also welcome that I think scrutiny are looking into it as well. And I think it's good for all members to engage with this. And I'm glad it's not just in tablets of stone, because it needs to move as changes move as well. Goodness knows what the weather will be like when we have the next report.
Thanks. Just pick up a point that Hilda made around, and I think Harry made as well, about ensuring that we don't do this to our communities, but do this with communities. It goes back to the core of our cooperative council principles of working together to co-produce the solution. But I also just wanted to say that words are easy. Voting for a motion is easy, but what isn't easy is voting for real intervention. So on the report, it talks about the LED street lighting. Actually, Conservative members of this council voted against the investment in LED street lighting. They voted against the creation of a solar farm. They voted against the funding for the creation of 200 green guarantee sites. They were critical of how we let the waste contract back in 2014. It's seen a significant increase in recycling, and I could go on and on and on. So actually, it's not just about putting your hand up at the relevant time around a motion or saying that you are a cuddly green. It is also about investing and voting for investment that makes a real difference. Yeah, the fact that we have over the last few years reduced our carbon footprint by 44% is significant. Is it enough? No. That's why we've got this action plan. But it's not right for some people to almost have their cake and eat it. Actually, we've got a real proud record on this. We want to do more, but we need cross-party support in terms of the investment that we're making in those interventions. So, it's been seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much. I'll call the meeting to the end. Thank you.